Thank you very much. So, hello. And while you're waiting for us to start, it would be lovely if you could tell us where you're watching from in the chat. I'm here not far from Florence, so I wonder where you are. So we'll be starting, but just to give people time to join, just give them a moment or two so you can check your volume and make yourself comfortable and tell us where you're watching us from in the chat. It'd be great to know where you're joining us from. Don't be shy. Please write in the chat. Where are you now? Can they write, Emily? Maybe there may be some issue.
No,
nobody's writing, so maybe the chat is not allowing them to write. Could be.
There we go. They should be able to write now. Sorry about that.
Okay, there we go. So now, if you did try and put where you were, I think now you'd be able to. So if you'd like to tell us, there we go. Now it's working. Super. Well, that was useful to find out that it wasn't working. Great. We've got France and Spain and Italy, some lovely Luxembourg as well, and Portugal, some lovely locations. Do tell us the town you're in. It's very interesting for everyone. If you're in the same country, Czech Republic as well, Switzerland, Lithuania, welcome everyone. Wonderful to see lots of different countries. This is, fantastic, Leon and Macon. Okay. Italy, where in Italy? I'm very curious. Messina, lovely. Super. So it's great to see such a range of different towns. So Spain as well, Bilbao, Paris, wonderful, and lots of other places too. Okay, well, I think we should start. So my name's Sarah Ellis, and I'm based in Italy. I'm actually speaking to you from just outside Florence. So thank you very much for joining us. We're delighted that you're finding time at this very busy moment of the school year. We appreciate that you've done that. So thank you. So just to say that we will be doing the session in two parts, and the first part will focus on Cambridge support. We're going to be looking at different resources, lots of free resources that you can download and use with your different classes in whatever way is most appropriate for you. And hopefully we'll also show you some links so that you'll be able to find them. And I'm here with my colleague, Emily. So Emily will be helping with questions. And if you would like to write questions in the Q&A, then we can make sure that we answer them. And then, of course, we'd like to invite you to speak in the chat. And the second part of the session, we're going to focus specifically on Kids Box New Generation, this amazing book for primary, and it's in a new edition, and there's lots to say about it. It's I think it's an amazing book, but let's see what you think by the end of the session. So just to remind you that you will receive a certificate of attendance in a follow-up email. And also, just to say, we'd like this to be as interactive as possible. I know that's difficult when we're on Zoom, but please do feel free to ask questions in whichever language you are more comfortable with as well. And we will try and answer those as we go along, but we will also have a little question and answer session at the end of the actual webinar. So thank you again for joining us. And let's start with the first part, focusing on resources for learners, particularly for young learners, and for you as teachers to support your young learners in the primary classroom. So I think it's useful, this busy time of year, to think about the opportunity that a new year gives us. It's a fresh opportunity to establish that relationship with your class, encourage relationships between your learners, and of course, to start setting up routines and establishing, if you like, classroom rules, particularly important, I think, when you're working with younger students, with primary students who will respond to having some routines that they recognize and feel comfortable with. And of course, having some rules will also help them be more effective in their classroom time. Of course, I think it's important for all teachers and learners to have shared learning goals. This is a good way of motivating and engaging learners so that they can see the journey that they're going to go on. Where are they going? Where have they come from? What are my goals as I travel along that journey that help me feel a sense of progression, some success as well. So thinking from the teacher's point of view, thinking about your ways of helping learners develop their language, but also how you're going to develop their skills. So that's their listening or their reading, their writing, and of course their speaking skills, which are equally important in the primary classroom as obviously with older learners. So I sort of mentioned it before, but I do think it's very important that learners can see what success looks like for them, so they can understand something about the goals and also feel, yes, I've arrived, I've been successful, I've met that goal. So showing students what it looks like. I think one of the things often is nice to do at the beginning of the year, they may have a new book or they may be using a new part of the book, is to kind of just to look across it so they can see the journey ahead of them. They can look forward to different things and see that this is what success is. We're going to be here by Christmas, maybe we're going to be here by March, and a sense of progression right from the beginning. So with all that teachers have to do in their busy time, the idea is that Cambridge can offer you some help and some solutions. And that's where this first part shows you some of those resources. So again, thinking about your learners, particularly primary learners, every learner really needs to feel that you as the teacher care about their personal lives and aspirations, that perhaps you know something about their lives, obviously without being too intrusive. But it is nice for a student to feel that you know something about that they like football, or that they have a cat, or something personal that from their own life that they bring with them to the classroom. Also, recognition of effort. I mean, it's very important that students do well, but also students who work hard and maybe not getting such high results, but they are working hard, and recognition of that effort is also important. It's not just about the results, it's also their commitment and their efforts in learning. So to be successful, we often say, you know, success breeds success. So if you are successful, there is that motivation to perhaps to try a bit harder and keep looking forward to more success. So we need to find that opportunity to help students see that success, so that we can use success to motivate students to keep going forward. This is an activity that I took from this little book here, Carol Reed's 101 Tips for Teaching Primary Children, which I particularly like. I like the idea of having a tree and giving the child a leaf. Well, there's an example here. It might be a post-it if you can't do a leaf, but having the idea of putting what they would like to achieve in English on that leaf and putting it on the tree, so that maybe they can look back after some time and see if they've achieved it. It might be something very simple, like I want to be able to buy something in English, or I want to share some information about. It could be something very simple. So the aspiration tree. I want to learn, 10 words about a particular topic and remember them. So it can be something very simple. The other area that Cambridge appreciates is that, English language is important, but it's not just about English. There are also skills, life skills and life competencies, which you can learn in the English classroom. And Cambridge has created the life competencies framework. It's for different levels, but of course there is a focus in this part on the use of the life competencies framework for young learners. And here we have kind of information that you can download from the website. And again, I think Emily will be putting links in the chat for you to take away. But you can see that the life competencies includes, you can see on the right, creative thinking, collaboration. So skills, life skills that go beyond just learning English, but you may also be developing those skills through English. And the life competence framework helps have some direction and also support a teacher in developing those skills. And we can see how there are, I mean, obviously a little bit small to read here, but when you download it, you'll see it better. But we can see the breakdown of each of those competencies, and we can see an example statement, a can do, and again, it's about what you can do, plus some examples of the kind of language that you might associate with that particular aspect of the competence. So it's very helpful. So here is an example using obviously the competence of social responsibilities, and you can see there are some ideas for primary. And again, we'll see how this is also integrated into learning material, including Kids Box that we're going to talk about in the second part. So the life competencies is a very rich resource, and it has a set of activity cards that we'll refer to, which look at each competence and give you practical ideas to put in using the classroom. Now, there are activity cards for young learners, for teenagers and adults, and obviously we're going to focus on young learners, but just for your information, you could see in the right-hand corner it says young, obviously because this is the set of young competencies cards. It's really nice. So here we're looking at learning to learn, for example, encouraging a student to think about their task completion. So perhaps when they've done an activity in their course book, you draw a scale on the whiteboard and you invite the learners to come to the board, maybe to put a star or to stick a post-it next to the position that they feel experience doing the task. So of course we can keep it anonymous if that's better for your learners, but it still allows the teacher to think or see how learners are feeling about their learning, and for learners to monitor themselves as well in a very simple way. You know, I didn't do very well in this task. I did very well in this task. Here is another one which encourages students to think on improving their learning. So again, they've done a course book task, they've had a bit of feedback, and then they will write something like, next time I will. And they think about the feedback, and then they think, okay, thank you for that feedback. Next time I will, or I need to practice, depending on the feedback that they've received from you. But again, it's all about the competence of learning to learn, which of course is incredibly important to establish, particularly in the primary classroom. Social responsibilities, here we have some examples of the cards. So thinking about understanding a social group, and again, this kind of creating the right atmosphere in your class also connects with an awareness of how people interconnect, or the responsibilities within a social group. Understanding another culture, it might be that you can have a map of the world in your classroom, and that you might, when you're doing a topic in your course book, you get them to think about or how it might relate to a particular country. I mean, they use the example of pizza from Italy, but I'm sure we can think of others for other countries as well. And learners might put a sticker on the map and add to their ideas, but again, thinking about understanding other cultures and cultural awareness. This one, I think, is also very useful because it gets students to think about objects, or think about things they need and things that they can't really live without, and of things that are nice to have, so luxuries that maybe they could live without, and that kind of awareness of perhaps global inequality also can be useful, that they start developing those ideas. Now, thinking about developing the classroom atmosphere, developing a positive approach, one of the things, of course, is using warmers. And this activity booklet can be downloaded for free. And of course, they've got lots of activities that you might need or like to use. And there you can see that here there's a description of the activity and an explanation of how to do it. Here's an example with anagrams done slightly differently. And again, lots of ideas, quick to use, which you might just like to jog your memory or find something new in this booklet. Now, learning goals at the start of the journey are, we said at the beginning that sharing goals is important, but also setting those goals. So sharing and setting them so that students have much more understanding of what they're doing and maybe why they're doing it, rather than just doing it without any sense of progression. So it does, create that opportunity for success. And again, it's all about that monitoring and measuring progress, that if we can help younger learners do that, they take it also throughout their school life and life in general, of course, a very important competence. Many course books will actually share their objectives with learners. So I think that's also a good opportunity, so they can see, okay, this is what I'm going to do here. And, so I've got an idea what we're going to do here. And then at the end of the unit, of course, I can look back and think about what I've achieved. So reflection, we're encouraging very simple way. Can I, say or write 10 words or 12 words? And I love the flower on the right. I think that's really nice. The idea of ticking a leaf of the things that you've done, or colouring the leaf green if they've achieved the objective. But really a nice, simple way to get students reflecting on what they're doing and whether they've achieved it, sense of success. So simple ways, of course, just, using your hands, also involving more learners, because of course, if you ask the students to just, actually all of them to say, well, how did you feel about that? Was it fun? If only one person answers, obviously not so inclusive. And this is very simple because of course you can. Again, how did it go? Holding up your fingers. Was it a 3? Was it a 5? Etc. I kind of like that physical aspect of involving more students at one time in the feedback. And of course, checklists always a very useful way of being aware of what they've done. Now, I'd like to mention Cambridge One. Cambridge One is the home of digital learning. It's Cambridge's platform. It's the go-to place for all the information you need about courses, about your, actually, we'll see that there's lots of other things as well, because basically the Cambridge One is easy access to all the learning and teaching materials in one place, and you can do it across multiple devices, whether that's your phone or your computer. It's been designed, obviously, to consider the learner and make sure that they feel motivated and challenged using it. When we have younger learners, obviously you need parental consent to use them. But once they're using it, of course, it's designed to be very easy for them to use. It also provides data to the teacher about maybe progress and obviously achievement. And of course, it involves also elements of gamification to help motivation. But it really is obviously using technology as a way to inform teachers' decisions as well. This is what it looks like. You kind of log in. You can do it with obviously through any of those. And you register with an email. And there's a help section if you need it. This is what it's looked like once you're in, and you can see that the main sections are divided into the classes, so you can have a multiple number of classes for your students, so that you can separate perhaps the material you're using or the different classes at the same level. You have a library of material, and you can see here we're looking at Kids Box, and you have also a training section for the teacher. So you're bookmarking your courses, so easy to find. and there's teacher support, and then all the course materials. It really is, easy to find everything once you've registered, and the course materials are all there in one place. If we take an example, zooming in on one particular book, we can also see that the platform provides a lot around the learning materials. And you immediately see that there's a test generator, so you can make your own tests from around the book that you're using, or the test generator will have some tests already created that you could just simply use. So this is really very helpful for a busy teacher who wants to have something appropriate for the book they're using. If they want to make it themselves, they can, and or not, or a bit of both. So it's really very helpful. Practice Extra, the interactive practice using online practice activities. We'll come back and just mention that again a bit later. And then a key tool is Presentation Plus, because Presentation Plus allows you to show the material on your whiteboard or on your computer screen or on your using a projector, whatever way you are sharing material with your students. If you want to do it with an online tool, with a presentation tool, then this is the one to use. Then, of course, we have the teacher's resources and all the things that you can print out, the audio, which you can use directly from Presentation Plus, but if you want for any reason to use it separately, absolutely you can. I mean, the variety of access is enormous. So whatever fits your circumstance, I think you're going to find a solution. Also, nice external resources, like there are games, but there are specifically lots about with using Kahoot around the book. Also, on Cambridge One, you'll find some advice about how to use Cambridge One if you're new to it, getting the most out of it, very simple, short explanations, so that you can obviously get the most out of it. There are also opportunities for professional development on Cambridge One, and you'll find a range of development courses. Now, these are actually paid for courses, these particular ones, and you can see that they range from 4 hours, they're 2 hours and 4 hour courses, and this range of courses is growing all the time. So again, you have, once you've activated, I think you've got 18 months to complete it, and then you get a certificate of completion. So using Cambridge One, we said, but also this one I found very useful is the specific book that you're using. There is actually a kind of an overview of a teaching with that book. So again, it makes sure that you know all the aspects of the book, all the resources around it. And if you like, it's more detailed than we can do today. Or you can refresh areas that you perhaps want to listen to again. Absolutely. Kids Box, Teaching with Kids Box, where you'll find useful from Cambridge One. So we'd start the learning journey, and we've been talking a little bit, we're going to talk about Kids Box and learning materials, but it's also worth thinking about exams for primary. And some of you may be already familiar with the Cambridge English Young Learner Test, Pre-A1 Starters, A1 Movers, and A2 Flyers. These are 4-skill tests designed for children from 7 to 12, more or less. And of course, they focus on 4 skills, which is really relevant to the classroom. You're going to want to look at 4 skills. And these tests encourage you and your learners to be thinking about the 4 skills. Obviously, they take into consideration the cognition and the age of the student. So, for example, yes, there is writing, but obviously at pre-A1 starters, we have to consider age and the cognition involved. So writing is going to be much more limited to take into consideration, but it's there as part of the test. So 4 skills. And very important to say is that these tests are about recognizing what learners can do and not what they can't do. And so anyone or any of the children who take one of these tests will get a certificate, and that is very motivating, and it's about what they can do, not what they can't. So I think that's also a part of setting goals, may include aiming for a Cambridge English Young Learner Test. And for the teacher, there's absolutely a complete transparency, what's included in the test, what vocabulary might be in the test, and there are things, useful tools like the word list, which have an alphabetical list and also a topic list, so that you really know what vocabulary is covered at what level. And with that in mind, there are also resources that allow you to practice that material, that vocabulary, consolidate that vocabulary using different activities, using different resources, like this poster, which is just amazing because you've actually got probably 4 posters within the same one with a different room. So you can get students to focus on vocabulary, consolidating vocabulary, but also developing and listening skills. If you're describing the room on the right hand side, there's a boy playing the guitar and the girl is writing, etc., etc. We can also practice listening and recognizing vocabulary, all sorts of things that you can do with these wonderful posters. And to help you with that, there are some classroom activities related to the word list and the poster that you can download again and exploit to accompany that the topic area. So you can see here as an example. So again, these are free to download as well. Now, in terms of teacher development and information for teachers, there's a lot. And I just wanted to mention one resource, which is this guide for teachers, specifically looking at supporting young learners with dyslexia. So information about dyslexia for the teacher and some practical suggestions. So you also understanding dyslexia and perhaps being more familiar with some of the challenges, and therefore being able to help support with some ideas. Again, this booklet gives you activities as well as information. I think that again is free to download. Now, leaving more generic resources behind now, moving into a specific area which are of growing importance is looking at sustainability and developing skills around sustainability. So before I say any more about that, I would like to ask you to type in the chat box, when I say sustainability, what words come to mind for you? So if you could, this is your chance to write it in the chat. Let's see what you think. Okay, lovely. Resilience, do more with less. Okay, balance, second hand, lovely. Fantastic, long lasting. Recycling, absolutely. Okay, preservation. Super. Super. So just a few examples there. And of course, you might be interested to see the definition that Cambridge is using for sustainability. And it's very much about ensuring a fairer, brighter future for people and the natural world. So quite succinct there. And this is a topic that includes environmental sustainability, social and economic aspects of sustainability. And you might think, well, what about with primary? That's quite, that's a bit of a challenge. But even if you think about an example of environmental sustainability, a child learning to write on both sides of the paper, perhaps, is environmental sustainability. But also for a 3-year-old or a young child who is learning to share and to cooperate, so kind of that social sustainability are, okay, small examples. So that brings the question, and I'm not going to ask you to write it in the chat, but as you see that question, the reasons for bringing sustainability into the English language classroom, there are many. And I think it's really important that English is a forum to allow young people to have an active part, and maybe because they want to have an active part, meaningful engagement in this area is most likely to be in English. And the development of life skills, so obviously all this around sustainability, we are looking at those life skills as well as the opportunity for shared global discussion using English to do that. And of course, increasingly governments and educational systems are requiring a growing the inclusion of sustainability in the syllabus. So this is an opportunity to do it with English. Now, this is the sustainability framework, which is being developed by Cambridge. We haven't got time to go into detail, but you can see that there are four core areas that get broken down into other definitions to help guide teachers in developing those skills around sustainability. And to go with that, like with the life competencies framework, there are a series of activity cards that allow you to kind of focus on a specific aspect of sustainability by doing classroom activities. And here is just a little selection of a few. Making connections between systems. I love the one about showing empathy and compassion. So maybe learners have been at the weekend, have experienced something natural, gone for a walk in the park, and so they're kind of thinking about the natural world in a bit more consciously. Also thinking about alternative futures, and we see also promoting social inclusion as activities that you can develop. They're not coursebook specific, but they obviously fit with the topic in many ways. And there is a website which you might find useful with more explanations about what sustainability is, reasons for teaching it. There's a training session that you can watch. And of course, the framework that I've mentioned. And if you want to, of course, you could look at the research behind it as well. Now, talking about research, another area that Cambridge is actively researching and actively involved in is generative AI. Now, what do you think about generative AI? So let's see, is there a phrase or a word? When we say generative AI, what do you feel or think? I invite you to share that in the chat box. Let's see what you think. Very different question from the last one. So what do you think? Okay, lovely. Thank you, Laura. Laura. Cautious excitement, curiosity, challenging. Lovely. Some lovely words there. And I think the useful tool, but not a human replacement. Yeah, absolutely lovely. Teaching resource. Okay. Help. Is that help? As I need help, or help because it will help? We can explore that further. Also, let's see, interesting and scary. Okay, intelligent. Okay, so a mixture of feelings about generative AI, which I think it has a time and place. I think that's great. It's something I'm very interested in. It's something I'm trying to learn about, and the more opportunity I have to share or find out about activities that may be useful in class, and I find that helpful. And for that reason, we just wanted to mention that that Cambridge has developed a generative AI idea pack for English language teachers, so for different levels, not just for primary, and it gives you really practical tips and ideas, looking perhaps at the rationale as well behind it, which I think is important. So understanding why you're doing something and how you're doing it, with very simple activities that you can adapt to your context, but with clear ideas and suggestions. So not just ChatGPT, looking at other AI platforms as well. So you might like to explore that. Again, all these resources, so the life competencies framework, the sustainability framework, and the activity cards that go with them, and these that go with a digital teacher, are all free resources to download. So we hope you might find some of those useful. So that brings me to the end of the first section, and we move on to actually focusing on Kids Box. This Kids Box New Generation, that's very important to say. This is a book that I would suggest is ideal for mixed classes. So it's a series, as you will see. It's very simple for teachers to use. with minimal preparation. But let me say no more for the moment, because I want you to think about ways that your course book helps you in the classroom. And again, invite you to write in the chat 3 ways that your course book helps you in the classroom. And if you could type your answer in the chat. Super, Masha. Last minute ideas. Structure. Okay, thank you, Fatima. Measure success. Guidance. Okay. Uses a range of resources, which is, of course, easier for a book to do, perhaps. Multiple intelligences, planning and activities. Some super things that your books do. Key vocabulary, key language, engage children. And of course, this starts to beg the question, of course, you need a good course book that's going to do those things that you need help with. And I think that what we can see here is that making lessons fun and engaging is essential, particularly at young age. So the new Kids Box New Generation does keep them laughing. The laughter is a very important aspect of the course, having fun as well as learning. So it's not just about having fun, there is a learning obviously behind as well. The integration of language learning and other competencies, so life competencies. So it's not just about English, helping a learner to be generally a more confident learner, not just in English. And of course, the other thing is that the support resources are there for you. If let me click it. Okay, I managed to get a pen by mistake. How did I do that? Let's get rid of it. I haven't got annotate. That's gone away. Okay, so there we go. Let's just go back to that last one. So the thing about this book, of course, an earlier edition did exist, and the best parts of that have been integrated, but with new resources and new features. And of course, you can teach online as well as for new teachers, for more experienced teachers. It really offers a lot. So in a nutshell, we're really looking at Kids Box having brand new content. So I think that's very important. I think the artwork and design is being updated and makes it more attractive and more motivating. And of course, there is enhanced digital support, as you would expect in today's world. There is also better resources connected to digital. So let's have a little look about something about the course. And I think it's obviously suitable for primary schools, but also for private language schools, so the PLS. Roughly, we're looking at 3 to 5 hours a week per book and per level. And of course, it's flexible, which I think is very important. So again, depending on your circumstances, you can extend it, you can be creative, you can be less creative, whichever suits you best. There are different versions. So you can have the Kids Box British English version, the American English version, and the English for Speakers of Spanish version. So I noticed that some of our participants today are from Spain, so that may be of interest. But of course, the choice is yours. But just so that you know that those 3 different versions are available. Now, it's about learning the language, but it's also a course which supports exam preparation. If you're interested in also bringing your students to preparing for the Cambridge English Young Learner tests. And I think this just illustrates how the different levels. So we're looking at the CFR levels and pre-A1 with starters, A1 movers and A1 thrives. And you can see there are 2 books per level. Now, it's not compulsory that you have to use each one, but obviously there is a connection. And I would say that the first book at each level has slightly less emphasis on exam practice, and there's a little bit more exam practice in the second one, if you're asking me a little bit about the difference. Of course, we're looking at 6-year-olds to 12-year-olds, more or less. We're looking at moving from beginner to A2, but you can start anywhere in that journey depending on what your learners have. So it's not you have to do each book. You can, of course, choose to start at wherever your learners need to start. So it's tailored for the cognitive development as well. You'll see that with the age moving and making it as enjoyable and fun as possible. And the progression of learning to exam is very smooth, I would say, and you'll see building on previously acquired knowledge. And there are songs and games and 300 new videos, which surprised me when I read that. So you can see the pairs per level, and I think that's a kind of useful thing to be aware of. Of course, the length of the different units, you can see how many units there are per level, and there is obviously a student's book and an activity book. At starter level, these are together. Otherwise, you have your student book and your activity book for each one. So it's mirroring the different levels and helping primary learners as they get a little bit older to retain focus. It's very much about age appropriacy, which I think helps. Progression, as I said, about developing language and exam skills. The teacher support and resources we're going to be looking at are absolutely fundamental and huge. The integration of the Cambridge Live Competencies Framework and CLIL, so there's a focus on CLIL as well, you'll see as we work through that. The Language Competencies Framework, let me just remind you that, of course, when we talk about, let's say, critical thinking when they're in primary, they're not going to be doing the same, of course, as they would do in secondary. So the materials reflect that. And again, we saw earlier the framework, and this, of course, was throughout Kids Box series, you'll find that's referred to. So we start at the lower levels with a focus perhaps on family, and you'll see that this is kind of like a bit of a modern family. I think it's helps to be a bit more representative of the kind of family we might have now. And of course, we also have an aspect, not just the kind of relationship of the family, but we also have toys, which students may have a relationship with or be interested by, let's say, because of their kind of character. They might relate to that particular character. So we have Marie, for example. So she's a thinking girl's Barbie, because she's she does a lot of thinking. And then we have Monty, and Monty is the lovable toy mouse. He's the mediator and a true hero. And Trevor, I think, is the lovable, innocent troll, and he wants to be one of the gang, but he feels slightly excluded. So again, an interesting model. And then we have Masked Man, who is superhero, but he's more super than hero. So our real hero is actually Monty. So it's again relatable for children, and again we see how the development across. We've got the fun, jolly, happy characters. We've got content that kind of reflects what they might be doing in real life, things like their day in their life, and things that they can actually relate to, which is very important. You can see that it's again, the illustration shows you that the higher levels up reflect experience of slightly older learners as well. So again, the material reflects that, which is great. So the exam development, you'll see, is very integrated. So just the fact that this first activity, they listen and point. So, where's the clock? And they listen and they point, of course, is just like the starter speaking test. So again, it's integrated very easily into the material. In movers, we have things like listening to being more aware of spelling and definitions of things. So again, exam practice, but not always immediately visible to the learner that they're actually practicing the exam at this stage. Flyers, we obviously see we have a higher level of language, and of course they're getting ready for flyers using this kind of material. Teacher resources, a huge selection. Video, audio, CLIL projects, you name it, obviously something to explore, photocopiables, print out worksheets, just enormous, lots of things to explore, festival worksheets, flashcards, lots of things, and download tests, because of course there are tests as well. So the digital pack, and again, here we've got the QR code, you might find is interesting to explore, because the digital pack is also enhanced learners ebook, and there's lots of practice activities. And for the teacher, there are obviously resources which are exploiting the aspects of digital. The competencies framework and CLIL. So again, we get these really interesting topics, not just about English, other subjects they might be studying, whether that's history, maths, geography, or perhaps science. And we get interesting reading, so language development, but in the CLIL. You also see this symbol. So the life competencies framework, and it will be telling you what this activity, which competencies it's helping develop. And so you could look out for that too. Now, if we do a look at the books just very briefly for this section of the session, I'd like to show you a couple of levels. Obviously, we can't look at everything, but it will give you a taste of what the book looks like, how it's structured. And if we start with this level 1, vocabulary is introduced and contextualized. We have the star family, and of course, you can see listen and point again. Listen and repeat, lots of activities. And we can see very clearly what vocabulary we're developing in on those particular pages. Also, the language structures that get to be introduced, again, contextualized. Interesting, we have the family with the vocabulary. We've got the toys contextualizing grammar. And then, of course, you can see underneath at the bottom of the page what grammar is being focused on there. Very quick to see. Of course, songs to develop it, and again, have fun using the vocabulary and the grammar. So we move into an important focus that each unit has, which is on phonics. And we can see the use of, obviously, this one is consonant blends, g, br, fr, green, brown, frog, and again helps students develop their pronunciation in a fun way and awareness of kind of the physical aspects of pronouncing English words. So then we get to listen to the story, and the language is the unit, of course, is here in the story. So again, relating to the characters of the family and the toys. Here we move into the CLIL page. So again, we can see even at this low level, we have our CLIL page, and it also has an activity in the activity book. You can see that. And a thing that I find very interesting is the values page. So it gets students to be looking at social and moral issues and thinking about how to be a good friend, which I think is also very nice. So then we get the review, and of course the review is full of different activities, again, attractive, fun, and allowing for lots of repetition. We've got the vocabulary again, you can see very easily what we're practicing, and of course lots of games to encourage students to practice that vocabulary and the grammar in this case. Interesting that the vocabulary, the pronunciation, so we have these little groups of words, so s, b, g, and h. So the silent sort of sounds interesting, and obviously visually makes it very memorable. We have pages where there's perhaps looking at festivals. In this particular one, I really like this. We've got Christmas and we've got Valentine's Day, And of course, the material is always very sensitive to this as an international audience, and so obviously will project different topics very sensitively. The grammar reference is fun and colourful, obviously highlighting the important areas, but easy, quick to use. There are cutouts for every unit as well, which again is fun, creating that fun element for practicing. So that's one. Well, we move into two. We see, again, you'll get the spread at the beginning of the book. Just to notice a couple of things about this. Apart from the key vocabulary, key language, you'll see that every 2 units, we actually have that values, focus on values, and related to one of the characters in the story, which I think also helps students relate to that concept. Then, of course, we get reviews, and the reviews also regularly happening, as you can see. We have this emphasis on language presentation always being fun, always having that opportunity to sing, do karaoke. So here, for example, we have karaoke with song, and you can use the karaoke with or without the words. You can speed it up, you can slow it down, you can make it obviously lots of fun with it as well. And obviously that symbol will show you that there is some listening to be done. The sound and spelling, again, practicing in the story, again, the characters being taken through. We have lots of lovely revision games, both in the book, in the activity book, and digitally, as we will see. I mean, really, the grammar reference, obviously just developing. And what I also think is useful is that we have the exam folder. Now, the exam folder allows activities that are like the exam, easy and just nice and attractive, but it's a kind of little exam focus without it really feeling too much like an exam, but they are obviously getting familiar with the tasks. And it's very, it's interesting to do as well. Moving into the next level, we see that the context is still the family with vocabulary, which I think is very useful. And then, of course, looking at how we can encourage the learners to put it into practice. So we're starting to do things like this. Here is an activity based around, they've read a text, they've answered some questions, and we encourage them to be grammar detectives. So putting students in pairs, so they will write their answer, and they look at the correct answers they've written, and they make the correct answer wrong. Because, of course, learning that you learn from mistakes is also very important. So they swap with another pair, and the other person must look for the mistakes and correct them. So there's that sense of, it's not we're correcting them because the student got it wrong. This is an activity that allows that focus on finding mistakes, which is very encouraging. And of course, they can use new vocabulary to support them. And of course, we're looking at the mechanics of grammar in a fun way. And if this is too challenging, then obviously the teacher can intervene and prepare the wrong sentences and make it a dictation game. And then they focus on identifying the mistakes. We have lots of video, and I haven't got all the videos uploaded for you to hear, but really 300, as I said, new ones. They're a nice way to present, to review key vocabulary, and of course to give a context that students will enjoy and find motivating. Now it's phonics. There's lots, as I said, and but the idea of doing the practice with lock and key. So lock and key are our detective heroes in the story. And of course, the children are going to be practicing with lock and key. So it's always recycling in the story. Now, if we look at lock here, helping with the pronunciation, we can perhaps sorry, I've already given you the answer. I was going to ask you to share your ideas, but I will tell you this one here, that we might use the word box here to make a sentence from those words, so that we can practice pronunciation. And what the students will do is that once they've written their sentence, they whisper it, And of course, they have to pass it down the line and see what comes out at the end to see how well they did in comparing the first sentence. So you've got the two things of generating the sentence. So obviously the language practice, focus on pronunciation, and the fun element of doing it as a whispering game. I'm sure you have even better ideas. So sorry, I didn't ask you the question. Here we have the story of Lock and Key. If you're able to read it, depends on how big your screen is, you might be able to tell me where Lock and Key go. So I'll just give you a moment to have a look at that story. Anybody like to say in the chat where they go? Okay, absolutely. So we're getting the answers now. They go to the hospital. Why did they go there? Why did they go there? Let's read, it's a bit small, maybe. Okay, so they went to find Nick Motors, the car thief. Now, come, and we need to go inside quickly before he runs away, they say at the hospital. There he is, that's him, Lock. Did they find him? No, he's not Nick Motors. He's a doctor, so obviously no. And then, of course, the fun aspect of that you can on Presentation Plus actually hide different parts of your of the page, and so you might be asking them to predict what happened in the hidden. Oops, sorry, that disappeared. So what happened in the hidden part? So obviously we can see here that actually Nick Motors stole Lock and Key's bike. So, you know, the end of the story, a little bit of, but you can use that tool in Presentation Plus to actually hide parts of your page. Now, coming back to CLIL and thinking about the fact that you can focus on other subjects in English, and perhaps you might want to get them to get involved in producing writing of different kinds, encouraging them to do different text types. Project work connected to LINC is included here in the, obviously in the course. Excuse me. And for the teacher, what I think is useful is that there's also support. So depending on how familiar you are with doing projects, there are some useful tips that you, and obviously this is also related to other aspects of teaching that help the teacher be more successful with something like a project. And here we have, again, you see the symbol of the life competencies framework down there in the bottom. And again, it sort of shows how learning to learn in this particular case, what makes a job fun is the focus of this particular activity. So again, the integration of the life competencies, developing the whole learner, not just the English learner, helps them become more confident and obviously use the language more confidently, more dynamic. It's much more real world focused, which I think is motivating and stimulating and useful. And I think these projects can obviously be very much a part of it. We have the review, as we said, which also includes reviewing using exam type activities, which we see on the right. It's kind of also useful that with that integration into the course. Remember that there are reviews every other unit. And of course, we want to encourage learners to also go back to the reviews so that they practice what they've learned. So that, again, that sense of progress, if we're getting them to be aware of how useful the review can be, not just once, but going back to it and reviewing it. Now, Kidsbox has games, and this is just an example that, you know, when in the game section, you can click on it. I haven't activated it, but you can practice the vocabulary from the units, using these different games, which are ready-made for you and easy to access. Now, the activity book, again, not surprisingly, obviously is easy to use. It's designed to be for students to be able to use it independently, so that the tasks are, easy in that sense, easy to understand, and for you to obviously allocate. But there's lots of extra practice and allowing for reinforcement and again variety. Now we also, you can see here that the game-like activities, also in this case colouring in the picture, is actually a movers listening exam task, and again they can practice that. They're able to access the recording as well from their activity book. So lots of activities to help familiarise with young learners, but as you can see, in a fun and enjoyable way. So if we look at 5 and 6 very quickly, just something to show how the level goes up into, obviously we're now looking towards A2 and perhaps preparing for flyers. We see now the children a little bit older. There are new characters introduced in at this stage, and also you'll see that the type of activity reflects a much more sophisticated pre-teen student. And you can, as we saw in the picture earlier, we can see that here they're looking, they're visiting a town and trying to find their way around. And I thought it would be useful for you just to have an example of one video so you can see the type. Just to say the children involved are not actors, so that makes it also much more realistic. And I'll just let you have a little look. So these children are trying to find their way around, and they're discussing how to find things. So let's just see if that works. Okay.
Post about London is going to be great.
Thanks for coming with us, Mr. Sharma.
That's okay, kids. Now, we have to be back before 5:30 for the train, so don't get lost.
No problem, Dad. It's 2:10, so we should have more than 3 hours. Great. We want to get some interesting information for our blog. Where shall we go first?
It says here that Tower Bridge is the most famous bridge in London. Let's go there.
Dad, how do we get to Tower Bridge?
Here you go, Mira. You can find it yourself.
What's that, Dad?
It's a map.
No, this is a map.
No, Lenny, not today. No phones today. Let's have some fun.
Okay, let's have a look at the map. How do we get there?
We're standing outside a shop.
That is here.
So we have to go straight.
Okay, well, I'll stop it, but you get the idea. And of course, it's an interesting message about reading a map, I thought. So yes, the interesting videos, I think they're quite motivating, and that's just one example. So again, making sure that there's this sense of progression. We see different types of activities being introduced, and of course we move from the earlier levels of the series to from vocabulary to much more of a focus on language development as we go to the higher levels. Kids box exam preparation we've mentioned, but just to kind of summarize that, also in the pupils books, particularly at those second books of the pairs, so 2, 4 and 6, and there's a little bit more exam preparation, but you'll find, so here's an example of some of those. And also in the activity book, you will also find exam preparation tasks to help them as well. So lots of opportunity to integrate very easily preparation. Again, perhaps one of your goals for your learners. So I hope you see that there's a lot to explore in this course. I think it's there are the digital part that we haven't really had so much time to look at, but there's the pupils book, the ebook, so we can see that you can use them on different devices. There's a digital pack that I mentioned, and also the teacher's digital pack, which is also connected to Presentation Plus that we mentioned. Other teachers' resources, and obviously flashcards, posters, and lots of other goodies that are included in the pack and the test generator. You can see the little list on the right in the practice extra also being covered. So I take you back to the idea that if you'd like to explore this course more, if you look at Cambridge 1, you have this amazing module which supports teachers to explore KidsBox, to understand much more about how it works, all the different features, and finding a way around it was really useful. Interestingly enough, if you actually complete the module, you can download your certificate as well to show that you've completed it. So again, there are courses for other courses as well, but KidsBox, you can see here the kind of content that we're looking at. So exploring different parts of the course, and really there's a short video. It doesn't take a long time to have a look at it all, but it helps you feel more confident about making the most of the resource that and resources that your course book provides. So it's fantastic. So I'm really running out of time, so I wanted to leave a little bit of time for questions. I know Emily has been busy answering, and I can see there's one question which is very interesting it's still to be answered, a question about KidsBox and starters and movers and flyers. Now I think they're different. I think this is a course which integrates language and exam practice in obviously over a wider range of levels. And I think you can use the starters, movers and flyers books Fun 4 as to integrate. So I certainly think I would advise you to have a little look at the teaching with module so that you can evaluate it better. But I do think they have different purposes, but they obviously strengthen your students' preparation for exams. Depends how much time you've got, depends how long your course is. So there are lots of, it's a difficult question to answer without the context. So I hope that sort of gives you an idea to go away with. Emily, are there any other questions that we need to answer?
No, there are no questions. Everything is very clear so far. So thank you very much, Sarah.
No? Okay. Well, I hope that's been useful, and I hope it will encourage you to explore the book a little bit more. I would like to launch a little poll so that you could give us some feedback on the session. So I'll just do that now. Okay, poll. Right, 2 questions, I think. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Webinars for learners. Have you found this session? How have you found this session? Thank you very much for completing that. Just 2 simple questions. Okay, great. Thank you for completing it.
And Sarah, we actually have 2 questions in the chat that have come in between if we have time to answer them.
And if there's any more questions coming in there. They don't, would they come distracted some by the activities? I would say no. I think it helps them focus because they want to complete the activities. And I think that's really important, is engaging your students. They're not bored by the activity. They want to do it. And I think that motivation really makes a difference. And they're interested, they enjoy it. And I think all those factors help towards success. Now I'm going to stop the poll because the last thing I'm going to say is that I would like to invite you to join the last sessions of of this week. So there are still some more sessions that you might be interested in. And again, in the chat, you should find the link if you would like to join some more of the sessions this week. But in the meantime, thank you very much indeed for joining this one. We wish you all the well with your learners. We hope hope that Cambridge will support you throughout this next year. And we look forward to seeing you at another event, whether that's online or face-to-face somewhere. So thank you again and all the best.